So I am Dr. Danielle Ferguson. Prior to becoming a researcher at AIR, I was a high school science teacher for 10 years, and I drew on my experience as a Black woman in STEM and former science teacher to frame and inform the research that I continue to conduct today. Specifically, I'm presenting findings from a brief that I developed about demystifying how to participate in NSF funding. But before we discuss the brief, I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and how I came to lead and co-lead two National Science Foundation funded resource centers, both of which facilitates workshops and other learning events to support prospective grantees in being awarded NSF grants. So I'll start talking about how I developed my research theory. So I started taking college tours in the sixth grade as part of an after-school program. That program later became an infamous charter school district in New York called Harlem Children's Zone. Those college tours really helped me identify early on that I wanted to attend college, but it was the care and support that I received from my teachers throughout my K through 12 education that led me to becoming a teacher myself. I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA, but my SAT scores weren't that great. I also transferred high schools in my senior year because my mother had passed away. So in my new high school, the college counselor, she wasn't really helpful. She stated that she couldn't write letters of recommendations for college because she didn't know me because I transferred in my senior year. And I'm not going to age myself, well, maybe a little. I'm gonna age myself a little here, but I remember having to mail letters to my teachers in my former high school and ask for their support. Um, and that was just really one of many obstacles that I had to navigate, not only to get accepted to college, but to graduate as well. The research will refer to these strategies that I use to be successful as grit or resilience. Either way, I knew I wanted to help other students with similar backgrounds as me have an easier path to success. And that led me to becoming a high school teacher in the inner city school district. As a teacher, I quickly learned that the culture of teaching in the city schools was grim at times. So even quote unquote smart students had to be resilient to be successful and to learn about pathways for future career success. This experience led me to pursuing a doctorate in STEM education because I really wanted to understand the factors that successful African American women in STEM said aided in their persistence and resilience in STEM fields. Specifically, I wanted to change the narrative about how to broaden participation in STEM fields. So, as you know, African American students specifically is underrepresented in STEM, and a lot of the research is focused on explaining why there is this underrepresentation and not enough research specifically that spoke to the experiences of African American women in STEM and how they became successful or what strategies they used. And so my dissertation work framed a lens which I view all the work that I conduct in the area of broadening participation in STEM or STEM education fields. So I built my theoretical framework using two theories, and they are cultural border crossing and resiliency. These theories had not previously been used to discuss broadening participation in STEM. And I just want to note it's important that when I'm talking about broadening participation, this extends beyond race, even though my initial study focused specifically on African American women. Broadening participation relates to increasing the participation of researchers from institutions and regions who have historically received less NSF funding. So since my dissertation that I have extended my lens on broadening participation work. And so I just want to give, a highlight of the literature that I reviewed to build my theoretical framework. So I looked in three different fields. So the field of social capital, understanding like different types of social capital that's needed for success in STEM fields. And then I built on social capital and the concept of cultural border crossing to really understand the experiences and how students was building resilience to be successful in STEM. And so just a brief overview, if you're not familiar with social capital is um, it is the goodwill that we have in any network. So it is the relationships that we have with individuals that help us to be successful in specific ways. So when it relates to STEM education, a lot of the research focused on students with low socioeconomic status versus students with higher socioeconomic status. And they really attribute the socioeconomic success to student achievement. So students with higher socioeconomic status have been found to be more successful in achieving STEM careers. And what I found through my research is that there is actually a bridge between SES and achievement, and that bridge is social capital. So, what are the resources that students have that they can draw upon to be successful, specifically in STEM education? And this capital is made up of different types of relationships. So, in any network, there you can have relationships that have strong ties, or the relationships can be made up of weak ties. Strong ties are relationships in which individuals, they think alike, they go to similar schools, they participate in similar activities, and they have strong connections to each other. So very similar thinking. Relationships that are made up of weak ties, those are more diverse relationships. So you have people that may um, have different careers, students who, attend different types of schools and different types of communities. So they have different access to different resources, and they challenge each other in their thinking. Relationships that are made up of more weak ties, so diverse relationships, networks that are filled with diverse relationships, are the ones that are most beneficial in schools. And research has found that students from higher socioeconomic status are more likely to have those type of relationships. So they are more likely to have relationships that is beneficial in schools. Um, so how does this work related to, STEM education? So researchers have found that success in science courses specifically depend on the differences in the cultural backgrounds of the students and the culture of science. So science is its own culture made up of, ways of knowing that could be very different from how students think, behave, communicate in their home culture. So, how easily students can navigate between the culture of science and their home culture is really what makes a difference in how successful they can be. The benefit here, though, is that, or the lesson here maybe, is that students can actually be taught to activate their social capital that will be appropriate for success. So regardless of their background, if they don't have the social capital or the resources, the networks that would be beneficial for them to navigate the science fields, cultural brokers could actually be a bridge. So that is like a mentor who is familiar with both the culture of science and the culture of the student's background, and they can help them navigate those cultural borders. All right. So now you may be thinking, why is this woman sharing her whole journey with us? So if you want to understand how to receive NSF funding, this is really closely related to social capital as well. So, what I found is that even researchers who have successful teaching and research careers, they need cultural brokers as well to help them navigate the NSF funding landscape. So, as I stated earlier, every network, organization, institution has a culture, and that culture refers to how people on the inside speak and behave. So, in order to move
Dr.
between the culture,
Ferguson, I want
yes.
to pause you because I we are not able to see your slides. I don't know if it is my screen. Is it I just see your title page right now.
Um, this is, I haven't gotten, can you see
Oh,
that slide?
oh yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
I'm just introducing the next section.
All right.
Okay. Um, sorry. Let me see. So, as I stated earlier, every network, organization, institution has a culture, and that culture refers to how people on the inside speak and behave. So, in order to move between the culture of their institution, for instance, into the culture of NSF, some researchers need assistance from cultural brokers. In this case, I will discuss NSF funded resource centers as cultural brokers for prospective grantees. All right, so as it relates to NSF, broadening participation of researchers in STEM fields relates to expanding the field of researchers, institutions, and regions who have historically received less NSF funding. NSF invests in resource centers to build the awareness of and capacity to apply for funding through the foundation, amongst many other things. So I am the PI of the Evidence Quality and Reach, or EQR Hub, which facilitates learning events for prospective DRK-12 grantees, and DRK-12 is Discovery Research Pre-K through 12 program. I'm also a co-PI of the STEM Education Core Research Hub. So the ECR Hub plays a similar role as the EQR Hub, and that is helping prospective grantees win NSF grants. So when I first started leading the EQR Hub, I made similar assumptions about the capacity of prospective grantees as many have made about my high school students, that you could teach them one thing that will magically make their proposal stronger. So my focus was on facilitating high quality events that will help improve proposal quality. But what I learned over the years from working with prospective and current NSF grantees is that it's not necessarily the academic knowledge that prospective grantees are missing, but the social and cultural capital that is required for NSF grant writing success. So as the PI of the EQR Hub, we surveyed 92 current DRK-12 grantees, about what they believe contributed to their NSF grant writing success. And the top experiences that they attributed to their success were serving on a review panel, followed by consulting with a program officer before submitting the proposal, and having a proposal read by a colleague before submission. So if you notice, none of this talks about them being an expert in their field. It doesn't talk about the institution in which they work. It doesn't talk about where they graduated from. These are all activities that they, had access to and knew of that they thought contributed to their success. So participating in these activities provide prospective grantees into like how proposals are reviewed, whether proposal is a good fit for one of the many NSF programs that they're applying to. And it gives them an opportunity to receive feedback about their proposals. And while these activities are seemingly available to everyone interested in submitting an NSF proposal, the capital or knowledge about how to engage in these activities and access to mentors who have NSF experience are part of what we call a hidden curriculum for prospective grantees, especially those from institutions and groups that have historically received less NSF funding. So it's easy for us to say like, oh, just serve on an NSF panel, but really understanding like how do you get on a panel is part of that capital that's important. And then having your proposal read by someone who has NSF experience will require that you have someone in your network that has NSF experience, to actually read and review your proposal. And then also people reach out to us to ask us about engaging with program officers. Sometimes they're very nervous about engaging with program officers and not really sure about how to take that first step. So all of these things about the how to relates to that capital that I was referring to. So learning from current grantees and what they attributed to their success, it really led me to rethink, how I develop learning events from prospective grantees. And it also inspired me to talk with other NSF resource center leaders and share lesson learned from across NFS programs about how to demystify participating in NSF funding. So in the next few slides, I'll share the 3 most common challenges leaders from resource centers share and some solutions that they use to help prospective grantees navigate these challenges. All right, so I'll start with the challenges they face. So, so these are lessons learned across 5 resource centers. So I interviewed 5 resource center leaders, and I asked them about what are some of the things that prospective grantees interested in receiving funding said was challenging for them. And so here I'll just share the top 3 things. One of the challenges lies in the disparities in institutional resources. So prospective grantees or researchers who are interested in NSF funding really discussed how at some institutions they didn't have like strong resource officers or Office of Sponsored Research Programs to really help them develop the grant, from the proposal phase, and even once they won the grant, they didn't have a lot of administrative support to administer the grant once it was won. They also discuss having differences in teacher loads. So professors or researchers from institutions that receive NSF funding, they talked about not having, graduate students to help assist with the research. And they had high teaching loads. So even if they won an NSF grant, they couldn't reduce their teaching time. So they still had to teach all of their classes and administer the grant and provide intellectual support on the grant. So those was just some of the disparities in people who are trying to get NSF grants. Another challenge is that when we are trying to put together learning events, so we want to put together a learning event around a specific method, we try to be very intentional, and I say we as in resource center leaders, we try to be very intentional about who is able to register for the event. So we can say prospective grantees, but prospective grantees could be a wide range of researchers from a wide range of institutions from all over the country. So that's not really a good, criteria for participation in the event. So one of the things that we really have to be intentional about when we're trying to set criteria, because we know we have limited space, limited time when leading these events, is trying not to create criteria that will prevent people from participation. So, for example, we lead the PI meeting. So PI are current grantees of the particular NSF program. And so they have a meeting every year to come together to share findings from their grant, so a conference specifically for them. And this year, we really wanted to invite prospective grantees to this meeting because we thought it would be important and increase their social capital about how to participate and win NSF grants if they increase their network and their opportunities to engage with current grantees. And as we were thinking about the criteria for participation in this conference, one of the criterion that was suggested is having them write a one-page, research paper to share out what their potential idea would be for getting the grant funded in this program. This was specifically for the ECR program. And while we do want to, invite people and have them tell us about why they're interested in coming and how their research aligns with the NSF program, one of the things we didn't want to do is kind of evaluate those papers, because we know that there's different resources and different levels of experience at different institutions. So we didn't want to create a barrier for participation, but we also wanted to keep in mind that it's important for us to know at least why they're interested in coming and how they think their program is aligned. So that's just one challenge that we face as resource centers in developing criteria. So, I think. Okay. And then the other one, sorry, I had to go back. I skipped this one. Another challenge that I kind of referred to earlier is that prospective grantees sometimes have limited social capital, so limited opportunities to participate in some of the strategies that current grantees have said were help them be successful, like review panels. So how did they know how to submit a survey or submit their resume? Where do they submit it to serve on a review panel? What is it like to serve on a review? Is the time commitment? How do you consult with a program officer? So some of those things they don't have experience with, and maybe not even know that these are things that current grantees are doing to aid in their own success. So those are the 3 challenges. And so what are some things that resource center leaders do in order to help um, prospective grantees win NSF grants? So one of the things that we do is we really try to build relationships with prospective grantees. So we engage with researchers in many different ways. So of course we have surveys that we disseminate in order to understand like what are the needs of prospective grantees, and that's prior to a learning event, but also after our learning event to see if our event met their needs. We also have conversations with NSF program officers to understand like what are some of the things that they think are preventing new people from winning NSF grants or maintaining NSF grants. And then we also interview and talk to prospective grantees. So we spend a lot of time trying to build relationships so that we can understand the specific needs of our audience. Another thing that resource center leaders said they do in order to support prospective grantees is help them expand their social networks. So we really try to connect current and prospective grantees in a network so that they can share lessons learned from, different institutional types. So if you work at a HBCU, what are some challenges that you face? If you have been successful, how what are some strategies that you use to be successful? If you're trying to develop partnerships, we can bring together people who have, been successful in developing and learning different types of partnership. So we really try to broker those connections between current and prospective grantees. And we believe that it really increases the social capital of both current and prospective grantees and how to uh, write better proposals, how to, facilitate different types of research, and just other types of social capital activities. And then another strategy that we use is really centering the expertise and assets of prospective grantees. So I started out talking about how, even smart students or even smart researchers or well-rounded researchers still sometimes have trouble obtaining NSF funding. And one of the reasons is related to social capital. So we really try to work with prospective grantees to use the language that would demonstrate their assets. So how do you talk about uh, leading research at an HBCU that graduates, so many STEM STEM graduates or something like that. So we really try to help them identify like what is the assets of their program, and then write it in a way that proposal reviewers will see it as an asset as well. So that is another strategy that we use in order to help them be successful, because it's not really about them not having the methodology experience or the expertise about their community. It's really about navigating like what would be seen as an asset to proposal reviewers who sit on these review panels and make award decisions, help make award decisions. All right, so to answer the question, what's the key to participating in NSF funding? I would say it's really like 2 things. Having a strong network That includes current grantees who could serve as cultural brokers. So your network really determines your net worth. So while it is important to be knowledgeable in your field, be a methodologist, you know, have great academic credentials, it may be even more important to have a strong network that you can draw upon, to build like that social capital and help you navigate those spaces. Um, and so a network that includes like cultural brokers, like I said, to help you navigate across those cultural borders is helpful for grant writing success. And if you are looking to increase your social capital, increase your network, NSF funded resource centers is one resource that you could draw upon to help you demystify how to participate in NSF funding. And so that is all I have today. I guess we can open up the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ferguson. Yeah, we have plenty of time today for Q&A, so just feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. And I will be monitoring the chat as well.
Hello, I have a question. Thank you for your presentation. I'm Candace King. I'm a postdoc in the Center for STEM Education here at USM. My question is: are these are wonderful strategies for students? Should they be? Do you think they should be incorporated into a course for students, or is this something that should just be like an informal? Part of the curriculum, like maybe a student interest group, and we teach these things? Or should this be something that should be formally taught to students, like maybe freshman year, like an intro course? I just wanted your feedback on how you think the best way to teach these strategies to undergraduate students so they can start practicing them before they even start like their graduate school process.
So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a course, but I do think it needs to be a part of coursework and informal opportunities. So I think helping students understand that not only are they at college to increase, be successful, graduate 4.0 to GPA, et cetera, but being intentional about building their, networks and making sure that they have connections with people. And so how do they do that? Like strategies they can use. So talking about conferences. So when they attend conferences, how to, talk to people, ask people about their work, how to stay connected with them over time, knowing who are the leaders in the fields that you're interested in and how you can engage with them. I think a lot of those, strategies for relationship building, we kind of assume that students will know or pick up as they go along. So I think we definitely need to be more intentional about, teaching students how to engage and build, their network. And what does that sort of look like?
Thank you.
While other people preparing their questions, I want to ask a few about pursuing grant and opportunity. So I'm wondering, when you pursue grants, and I see you are PI and co-PI of several grants in STEM. So I'm wondering what kinds of problems or needs do you prioritize when deciding to pursue an opportunity? And I'm wondering, how do you align your grant proposals with both your research agenda and funding agency priorities?
I think you start with what you are interested in knowing more about. I think is more important. Your research agenda is the most important. It should be at the forefront of the opportunities that you pursue. So I'm interested in broadening participation efforts across K through 12, and I guess at this point beyond into workforce. And so my research questions kind of drive the opportunities that I pursue. And so there are a number of different NSF programs, some really focused on intervention. So like DRK-12 program focused on teacher intervention, student interventions for improving STEM education. The ECR program is really around funding core research or fundamental research ideas, so building and exploring theories. And I think your research questions determine what program that you want to, pursue. And then you align I feel like you try to find a program that's aligned with your research and not the other way around.
Thank you. I
Dr.
wanna,
Ferguson,
yeah, go ahead, Andrea. Sorry.
okay. Dr. Ferguson, thank you so much for your presentation and for sharing some of your background. I'm a former high school science teacher as well. I was just interested in your career pursuit at AIR versus, say, taking a role in a more academic setting. So what are some advantages that you see in your current position in terms of furthering STEM opportunities for individuals that wouldn't otherwise have those opportunities? Would that be the same if you were in academia, or do you feel like you have a unique position where you are currently?
Um, I definitely think I am in a unique position working at a research institution rather than in academia. Um, I can't speak to all the pressures of working in academia so much because I've never worked at Institute of Higher Education, but some of the things that I've heard from um professors, researchers at these institutions is really like that idea about publish or perish. You have to publish so much, you have to become tenure, while also, teaching a full load of courses, or even if you're at a more resource institution where you have, less of a course load and also doing your research. I think the benefit for me at an institution such as AIR is that I don't have the pressure to publish or perish. Like, I do publish papers, I do, write research papers and engage in, individual research-led research. But I'm able to explore the ideas that I have without also having to teach a full course or courses to students. So it frees up my time and space to develop ideas. Um, and it also, we have a really strong proposal development team that really supports us when we're writing proposals, and have a lot of processes in place to not only, write the proposal, but also to administer the grant once we receive it. And what I've heard from more under resource institutions is that the PI is responsible for teaching the courses, leading the intellectual, development of the grant, and also all of the administrative paperwork that you have to do for a grant. So, I mean, I feel like I'm in a very unique position in that I am using more my intellectual space to develop and lead the grants, and maybe not administer them so much. And then specifically related to broadening participation opportunities, I think leading these NSF resource centers has been a great opportunity for me because it allows me to draw on my, teaching skills and facilitating workshops or webinars in order to support researchers. And it's in getting NSF grants, but it could be related to a number of different things. Like at AERA this year, we're talking about how to build and sustain partnerships. We have, webinars on specific methodology. We have webinars on, just grant writing. So it's a wide range of topics that I can cover, or I don't have to cover, but also bring in some of my colleagues to lead some of these workshops as well.
Thank you.
We can take more questions from the audience if you have more. And I have one question about the resource center as well. You mentioned that you have resource centers to support people who are interested in pursuing proposals. Can you say more about that? How does it work? How can a professor or a faculty member can utilize from the support coming from here?
So there are many different types of resources that NSF funds, and they are dependent on the program. So I co-lead a resource center for the ECR program specifically, and also the DRK-12 program. But there's resource centers for informal STEM education program. There's resource centers for like many different programs. Right. And I'll have the link to the brief where I identify the resource centers that, the leaders that we talk to. And so how do you participate? There's a number of ways to participate. Most of us have websites, and on those websites you can see, have access to resources. So whether that's templates for writing a one pager to talk to a program officer, they have proposal development courses. I know Cadre specifically has a proposal. Cadre's is funded for DRK-12 as well. Proposal development course that's self-guided, that you can take, and there's also units on different things. So if you need to just specifically look at how to develop a budget, they have a unit on that. If you want to just how to develop your research methodology, they have a section on that. So I would say the first step is maybe after you identify which program you're interested in applying to, go into the resource center page. We also promote events like webinars or workshops that we are hosting on specific topics, and all of that information will be found on the resource center page. And it's usually pretty open. Like I said, sometimes there's some criteria to participate in, just because it'd be hard to facilitate a workshop with 100 people. We have to narrow it down. But we also have pre-recorded things as well. So if you go on the resources, previous workshops or webinars that have been recorded are saved there as well.
Thank you so much. I have a question in the chat from Suraj. Asking, could you kindly highlight key points on student engagement in science learning? I don't know if you want to elaborate more on your question.
I think elaboration would be helpful.
Yeah, probably this student is asking more about connected to your grant project, I believe.
I don't currently work with students, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Suraj, do you want to elaborate more on your question? If you can speak. And we can take other questions as well. We have time today. In the meantime, I want to bring one of our students' question. I mentioned that they are posting to the discussion board, and she's unable to attend today's session. And Sandra, she's asking she's kind of related to your work in TIMSS and NAEP assessments. And she's asking, based on your experience, what types of curriculum frameworks have shown the most positive impact on student achievement in science education? And what emerging trends in curriculum development do you foresee shaping future of education?
And so I do not really work with evaluating curriculum. So I think I would be misspeaking if I say like what curriculum is the best. Most states are developing curriculum that is some version of the national NGSS, next generation science standards. So most states, so we don't have national set of science standards, but most states at this point have been developing curriculum related to NGSS. So I think that is the most I can say about that because I don't really evaluate curriculum.
Yeah, she's asking more related to your previous work, I guess, on TIMSS and NAEP. So, but thanks for, for the insights.
TIMSS is a national assessment, but there's no national curriculum. And so what I do is I review science items for NAEP. But it's not related to a curriculum, is about related to science content. So
Okay. Do we have any other question from the audience or comments? I guess we have all the questions today. So it was a wonderful presentation. I think I will go ahead and conclude the session. If they have more questions, probably they will be able to reach you out with your email on air. So thank you all for your thoughtful participation. I enjoyed it so much, and it was so great to meet you, Dr. Ferguson, and thanks for being here.